What is going on, guys? We are back for another top 5 video. In today's episode, we are going to be covering the fire typing. Now, when I think of the fire typing as a kid, I always just thought flamethrower. Nothing else mattered. If you could do flamethrower, if you weren't a good special attacker, you meant nothing. But nowadays, it's so much different, right? Fire types are immune to getting burned, which means that if you're a physical attacker, I mean, that's one less thing in the way. I mean, obviously, intimidate is something that a lot of people like, but if you can avoid being burned, I mean, that's such an easier path to having a good physical attacker as well. So obviously this typing for me has one of my favorite Pokemon, again, like last week's. As you can see, I actually have a couple fire types behind me on the screen here, but yeah, without further ado, this list is 100% opinionated, like any other list that we do here. This list isn't just based off of stats. This isn't just based off of design. It's kind of based off of a combination of things and kind of just ranked accordingly by my own opinion. Obviously, if you have a different opinion down below, leave it in the comment section and I'd love to see it, right? So, but yeah, without further ado, let us hop in to number 5. Alright, so coming in at number 5, we have Talonflame, which to me always reminded me of a Phoenix or a Falcon. Obviously, when it first came out, Gale Wings was absolutely unbelievably overpowered. The ability to give all flying type moves like priority. And so what this thing would do, even though it didn't really have an amazing attack stat, it already had a 126 speed, and it would just go Brave Bird, Acrobatics, Tailwind, repeat, and it would just outspeed you and just slowly wear you down. It would have priority roost so it could heal itself up. It was just crazy. They ended up nerfing it and obviously made Talonflame a little bit weaker, but I mean, I think this Pokemon for like a little bit was like one of the premier Pokemon in the game. It was wild. But yeah, this Pokemon obviously has a super sick design. I wish it had a little bit more Phoenix to it than Falcon, but other than that, there's really no complaints. I mean, this Pokemon, when it flies, it like has like embers kind of coming out of its wings. Like, it's such a cool Pokemon, and I think it definitely deserved a place on this list, especially where it had a moment in time where it was just absolutely one of the best Pokemon in the game, period. It's kind of fallen from grace a little bit, but other than that, it is one of the best fighting or fire types in the game. But without further ado, let us move on to number 4. Alright, so at number 4, we have Pyroar, the pride of Pride Rock. This Pokemon obviously is has different forms based on whether it is male or female. Fun fact, it actually is a 1-to-7 ratio, so like every 1 male, there's 7 females, kind of like in a natural lion like pack, right? Yeah, so it's actually a super weird Pokemon. You know, when you think of a lion, you think of it being able to attack, like physically be able to attack, but this Pokemon actually has a really bad attack stat. It's actually more of a special attacker with decent speed. And so what this Pokemon wants to do is Flamethrower, Hyper Voice, Noble Roar to boost its physical and special attack, and maybe you can think about running a physical set with Noble Roar, but for the most part, you're going to be sticking to special moves, and maybe has Snarl, maybe has one other kind of, you know, other move that's going to help you out, but for the most part, this thing's actually a special attacker, contrary to what most people believe. For me, obviously, the male Pyroar version is literally Mufasa right there, like, no questions asked, right? But obviously the female version are the ones that do all the fighting in kind of real world. You know, the female lions are the ones that are actually doing shit. Males just kind of sitting there being lazy. So for me, this Pokemon's super cool. It's kind of cool how they just really incorporated the real life ways that lions kind of are. For me, it absolutely deserves a place on this list. I mean, you can't not have like king of the land animals like off your list, right? So without further ado though, let us hop in to number 3. All right, so coming in number 3, we have Rapidash, and this is one that Megan would obviously be super proud of me for having on the list. But Rapidash was always a Pokemon that I really, really liked. It really wasn't ever, like, great, but it was always pretty decent. Like, in Generation 1, obviously it really was hurt by the physical special split. This is a Pokemon with 100 attack and 105 speed. At the time, it was one of the faster Pokemon in the game. This Pokemon is just a Pokemon that just loves to run around. I don't even really think it wants to fight. I think it just wants to run. It's competitive, but just wants to race and run, right? But I think it can actually get up to, like, 150 miles per hour. So it's a fast little guy. But you know, as a kid, I always used to name these things Firebolt because of the Harry Potter movies, right? You get the Firebolt broom, and it just kind of, the name always just fit me. But when I was super into, like, medieval history and stuff, like, I always just thought, like, what if Rapidash was a Pokemon and you just rode, like, a flaming horse into a battle? Like, that would be so wild. But obviously this Pokemon, not the greatest competitively, but design-wise, it has a lot of nostalgia for me. It can kind of be considered a unicorn as well, and so you get moves like Mega Horn, you get, you know, obviously it has its alternate form. But we're not talking about that today, but, you know, it still has Flare Blitz, it still has Wild Charge, it gets access to high horsepower, and it gets Baton Pass, kind of like a racer would, right? So I think it has a pretty unique move pool for what it is. Obviously, it's not going to blow anyone away, but it's just a really cool Pokemon, and I always really had a place in my heart for it, and that's why it had to be number 3 on my list. But I think with number 2, place in my heart has nothing to do with this. Number 2 is going to be a pretty obvious one. And of course, you already knew Charizard has to be. Charizard is one of the icons of Pokemon. Like, this thing is everybody's first dragon type. It really is. There's no question about it. This is everybody's first dragon type. No one can tell them different. So, but this fire flying type obviously has 2 different Mega Evolutions and a Gigantamax form. This Pokemon gets so much love from Pokemon that it's insane. But what I really love about it is that the X version, they actually gave it the dragon typing. They gave it fire, dragon. But then the Y version, they kept it with its original typing, but just made it so good competitively that it was like, holy shit, like, what do you do? Right? But obviously, Charizard has so much lore going around the entire Pokemon world. So it's obviously a starter in Kanto, on top of the fact that it actually has its own training area in Johto, in Charcific Valley. And it's just a Pokemon that's just super hyper competitive. It's looking for strong Pokemon to fight. It actually is kind of a dick and just ignores weaker Pokemon. Like, you ain't worth me, get out of here. Like, it knows its value, that's for damn sure. But obviously its base form is more of a special attacker, but its Mega X form gets 130 attack, 130 special attack, and it's there to just rip you apart. With Tough Claws, all of its moves that make contact, I mean, they're boosted power. So, I mean, physical Mega Charizard X is pretty powerful. It can't get burned because it's a fire type, like I was kind of saying in the intro. It's really, really powerful. And then its Mega Y version is even better competitively. So it gets Drought, which boosts up its fire type moves, lowers its water type weaknesses, strength, and then it gets a 159 special attack stat. And it's just gonna sit here with the sun up, Solar Beam any water type, Solar Beam any rock type, Solar Beam any ground type, and then it's gonna Flamethrower or Fire Blast everything else out of the game. And then obviously if it needs to, can Air Slash you to death too. So this Pokemon, obviously one of the best Pokemon competitively for a really, really long time. Obviously has a lot of weaknesses with rock, water. You know, it does have some weaknesses, but it's a really, really nostalgic, really, really good Pokemon that's actually stood the test of time as being one of the better Pokemon. But without further ado, this is only number 2 on the list, so we need to get to number 1. And here it is coming up right now. And here we are, number 1 on the list. We have the Kitsune Pokemon, Ninetales. Now, Ninetales can live 1,000 years. It has supernatural power stored in each one of its tails. It's a super vengeful Pokemon. And that's why it's able to be so diverse. And that's why it's considered a Kitsune Pokemon. It gets Ghost type moves and Psychic type moves. It's a super vengeful Pokemon. Like, it honestly will hold grudges forever. It's kind of wild, but foxes and wolves are kind of my favorite land animals. And so this Pokemon design-wise already kind of had a W for me. I even like its Alolan form like a crazy amount too. So, but we can't talk about that on the fire type list again. There's a lot of Alolan references coming up in this episode, but obviously this Pokemon competitively, it's a weaker version of Charizard Y, is effectively what it is, right? It gets Drought just like Charizard Y, but it only has 81 special attack and 100 speed. So it's a little bit slower, a lot less attack behind its power, but you know, it's a Pokemon that actually can set up Nasty Plot, and Nasty Plot is a move that will double your attack, right? So it can set up and then be dominant. It just needs to have that initial setup and that initial support around it. But once it gets it up, Flamethrower, Solar Beam, just like Charizard. And because of its kind of Kitsune-like thing, it gets so many options as like a final coverage move. You get Hex. You could run, instead of Flamethrower, you could run like Mystical Fire or, I don't know, Incinerate or something that like burns your opponent. And then you could set up Hexes, and then like, now Hex is a double powered move because it's status, or you know, maybe you chose to run Psychic or Dark Pulse or Snarl. It gets so many different combinations of moves. Weather Ball is obviously the easy one. If you're kind of playing a weather team, you'd be able to use Weather Ball kind of instead of Flamethrower, and then you would have access to that, right? So there, I mean, there's different things, right? But, or like Weather Ball over Solar Beam. Get Energy Ball if you don't really like Solar Beam. Like, this Pokemon just has so many things, right? Shadow Ball because of the ghost kind of element. But yeah, this Pokemon just has a super diverse move pool. It's not the greatest competitively, obviously, like I was kind of saying, but I think for me, you know, with it being one of my favorite types of animals, and it still being and having a niche place competitively, you know, to me, it's personally number 1. But without further ado, that is going to wrap up today's episode of our fire type top 5. If you have a different list than me, of course, I would love to see it in the comment section down below. Obviously, there's a ton of really good fire types that didn't even make the list, right? Like Incineroar. You know, there's so many good Pokemon that didn't make the list, but of course, I want to see yours in the comment section down below. So make sure to do that. While you're down there, make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you haven't. Obviously the support means a ton, and without further ado, we're gonna get up out of here. The next typing that we're gonna be doing, F. I don't think there's any more in F, so I think we have the ground typing next, I believe. So be on the lookout for that, and I will see you guys in the next one.